You're listening to the Clean Comedy Podcast with your host, James Creviston.
Hey everybody, it's James, the Clean Comedy Podcast, and today I have a great guest. If you've ever watched Dry Bar, if you've ever seen any of their top videos that are on Dry Bar, you've seen him. He has great one-liners, just great funny lines. Actually, one of my favorite bits is he has these cards that he reads, he does the joke, and then he looks at the audience because the jokes are very silly. You kind of have to think some of them through, and then he throws them. And then one of them he has a math problem written on there, which is actually one of my favorite parts because it's just so off-putting. But if you haven't seen him, you got to go check him out. His name is Robertmac. Please welcome Robertmac. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for mentioning that one because
I love that one.
Well, it's really odd. I'm kind of new to social media because I'm promoting a special that I have coming, and somebody's helping me with the social media promotions, and he took that bit that you're talking about where I pull all these jokes out of my pocket, and he posted it on TikTok, and I'm new to TikTok, but within a few hours it got 1 million views, and it is now up to over 2.5 million views in under a week. It is crazy how it's taking off.
It's just such a genius thing because, right, as comedians we're told, don't bring jokes on stage, don't bring anything on stage, like remember your jokes. I don't know if there are actually jokes written on those cards or not.
Oh yeah.
There are.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that seems to be like the anti, like the people would say, don't do that, don't ever do that. But I love it because it's so refreshing and unique and not, I mean, and it also kind of reminds me of vaudeville stuff, like a little bit, if that's, I don't know if that's the intention.
I hear vaudeville. I was in England over the summer, and they told me I was campy, which I thought was interesting. I hadn't heard that one. They called me retro and campy. But it's always nice to hear from another point of view because as comedians and performers, we have blind spots. So it's nice to hear stuff from a perspective that we wouldn't have considered before.
I love it because your kind of stand-up is kind of dry. Like it feels dry, but not really. It's like engaging, but it feels like you're either getting the jokes or you're not. Like it's kind of just that way of performing. And I show it to everybody. Like I teach teenagers stand up, and I show your videos, your Dry Bar stuff to them, and
wow,
I go, this is another way, guys. Like you see all these other comedians. This is something you never see. You and Mitch Hedberg. I know you're not exactly like Mitch Hedberg, but that very just here's the joke. You get it or you don't. Like there, and I also love that you say that to them. Like, are you getting this? Are you getting this joke? Like, you know.
Well, thank you. I reached a point where I was so tired of seeing comedians go on stage and they'd say something and laugh, and that just was so disingenuous. So my act became kind of deadpan, and sort of like Mitch Hedberg. I would deliver a joke, and it's all there. You either get it or not, but don't worry, because here's another one following it.
And they're so good. They're so good and tight. Like, do you write often? Like, are you writing all the time? Like, what's your joke creativity process like, I guess?
I take notes. I take a lot of notes during the day. An idea will come to me, and I'll dictate it into my phone. Or if I'm feeling very nerdy, I'll do it into my watch, which will send it to my phone, which will send it elsewhere. But to be honest, this is what I'm very proud of, is only in the last year or so have I developed and maintained a regular writing schedule. Over the years, I would try to do write at a certain time, and it would just never work out. If it's at night, I can't do that because I have shows at night. Mornings don't work because it's noisy, people are coming and going, but I don't have another job, and in the morning when there's no one else here, I sit down for an hour and I go through all those notes and I write them out, and it's been a nice process because I've converted a bunch of premises, pages and pages of premises, into material, and then I can try it on stage. And like I said, it's been just about a year, and I feel much more productive. And it's nice to have a routine, because once it's developed, then on days when I can't do it, I'm like, oh, I'm missing out. But more often than not, I get to sit down quietly, try to turn everything off, and just work on, all right, what's next? What was the next idea I had? Feels great. I highly recommend it for anyone who wants to be a comedian. Develop a routine. And this goes for not just comedy, but life in general. The best way to get anything done is to create a good habit out of it, is what they say.
Yeah, what I do every day is I go through and I make the night before, I make a list of everything I have to do that day. No more than 10 things. And then I make sure I get every single one of those things done every day, and it makes me more productive. So.
And when you wake up, that list is there.
Yeah.
And you don't waste any of that time going, what should I do now?
Yep.
That was a great game changer for me. There's a famous story about some guy who went to a factory, or a factory owner brought in an efficiency expert and said, how can we be more efficient? And he said the same thing. Have your managers write, I think, 6 or 7 things down that they want to do the next day. Put that on their desk, and so when they walk in, they don't waste any of that time or energy and shifting gears from the creative mode and planning mode to the work mode. They can sit down and crank out work.
Yeah, and our brains seem to like those like kind of check off type things.
Love them. Cross them off.
Yep,
nothing feels better than that.
Now, how long have you been doing stand-up, and how did you get started? And where did you get started? Let's go there.
I started in Tucson, Arizona. I started to hang out at the open mics. Then I would go once a week. They would let all the open micers watch shows, sneak in the back and watch shows. So I would watch a show every week and fell in love with it, and finally got up the gumption to do one of the open mics, and it went very well. They put me up. Every place does it differently. This place, I was up like 4th or 5th. The audience was warmed up. The host said to the audience, hey, everybody, be nice to this guy. It's his first time. Show him some love. Sometimes they just throw you in the den with the lions, but
yep.
They couched it very well. It went better than expected, and I fell in love with it. I got the bug. And that was, 29 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you still in Arizona? Is that where your home base is?
No. I moved from there. I was only there a couple years doing stand-up, and then I moved to San Francisco, and things started to pick up, and I won this Comedy Central thing, and I moved to LA, and that my momentum kind of died in LA, and I moved back to Arizona, and now I live outside of DC.
Wow. Oh, all right. Wow. Whole other side of the country now.
Whole other side of the country, yeah.
Now, is there a big comedy scene out there in your area? Like in DC? I don't know. I know New York's pretty big, and I know even Philly and Boston, but how about where you're at?
I would say that they are, the size here is probably a step down from those. Of course, New York is an industry town, and Philly and Boston have a strong history of stand-up. DC is great because it's growing, but what makes it interesting to me at least, is it's a very educated place, and it's a very cosmopolitan place because it's an international capital. So there are people from all over the world here, and a lot of college graduate types. So it's not a slow, maybe a rural area. It is hopping with the type of audience that I like to have. People who are educated and pay attention and are interested and curious types. So it's a great scene for that, for me.
Yeah, I would say your comedy is very intellectual. Like, I know you do the deadpan, which kind of can put people off to go, well, what's this about? Like, but it's very intellectual. It's you have very great thought out setups and punchlines that are just, if you're not listening or you're not paying attention, you could miss the joke because it is smart.
I get that a lot. I get a lot of people who, you miss the beginning of the joke. Every word is important, so if you miss one of those words, then you're not going to get it. And sometimes if people are are drunk or talking with their friends or not engaged. They see a guy on stage who doesn't look like he's having fun, and they're not paying attention enough to get the joke, so they think this guy isn't funny. So every once in a while, it I wouldn't say backfires, but it doesn't have the effect. But to be honest with you, those types of people, I don't want them in my audience, I'll take the other, 99% who are enjoying it and who are leaning in. I think that's what it does is you have to go, oh, wait a minute, I need to pay attention. And once people are leaning in and turning off the distractions, then it's clicking. And then I've got them and they've got me. And that's what I've discovered over the last 29 years.
That's awesome. So you developed this style over 29 years. Did you start out using this kind of style? Like, who were your inspirations? Like, who did you kind of pull from to get started?
I would say Steve Martin is probably the first comedian I heard of when I was a kid. They would play him on the radio. That's when he was booming. And I think I've kind of circled back. He and I and a couple of other comedians share a similar persona of a my friend Mike calls it a high status fool.
Yeah.
I call it like a smart dumb guy or a dumb smart guy. Someone who's full of themselves. So Steve Martin was one of the first. This first comedian I saw live was Stephen Wright, and for people who don't know Stephen Wright, very short little one-liners and little vignettes almost. And Rodney Dangerfield, of course.
Yeah.
And I started, and I probably tried to emulate them, but it took me a while to find the voice. It probably took 12 or 13 years to stumble onto this smart dumb guy or dumb smart guy. And it's so fun. Part of me wants to be completely honest on stage and tell it how it is and report what's going on in the world and going on in my life. But another part of me wants to play this character, this exaggerated, weird, quirky guy, because it's fun to play something and get behind it and commit to it and exaggerate it and let people in that this is just this guy couldn't possibly be real.
Yeah.
And let them figure that out.
And I love that. I am a big Steve Martin fan. Above my desk, I have 4 albums that are like poster bait, but they're the real vinyls. They're just in the frame. So I have Rodney, Eddie Murphy, Bob Newhart, and Steve Martin right above me because those are the people that really inspire me or have inspired me a lot. I can't find a Chris Rock one because that's the other one that inspires me. But I do like your style, and I like Steve Martin. Like, I love Steve Martin stuff. I love watching Steve Martin stuff. The Jerk is one of my favorite movies. It's based on his stand-up, so I get that. You gave me that vibe. I got the Steve Martin meets Mitch Hedberg kind of vibe is what I thought when I first saw you. I was like, this is so smart, but also like so silly. It's so, I don't know. It's so good.
It has to be silly. If I'm not silly, and I learned this kind of the hard way, if I'm not silly and if I'm not self-deprecating, then people have told me that I come across as a know-it-all, and then people don't like to listen to some smart guy tell them stuff, and so I learned this trick of, if I play the dumb guy who thinks he's smart, they get the same jokes. But it just comes at a little bit of a different angle, and it's not coming from a know-it-all. It's coming from an idiot.
Yeah.
And instead of me telling them a joke, they figure out the joke.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing is it's a very thought-provoking style of comedy, and again, it does remind me of Steve Martin. You wear a suit that's unique to you. Like Steve Martin had the white suit, but you have the blue suit or the gray suit, and it just is so different. It's so unique. How long did that take to develop, like what you wear on stage? Because everybody's different in that stuff,
It's weird. There was a time when I was living in San Francisco, which has a great comedy scene there, and a lot of comics were getting on stage with T-shirts and jeans with holes in it, and a very funny guy named Larry Bubbles Brown. Bub says to me, he's like, we should dress nicer. People don't want to listen to some teenager with ripped up jeans. And so I started to wear a suit, and suits are really hard to to lug around and travel with. They get wrinkled, then you can't wear them, or you have to find a way to unwrinkle them. And my act became a couple of cards coming out of pockets, so I needed a jacket with pockets. And then I found these polyester 70s jackets, which travel very well. They roll up and are relatively wrinkle-free. Shove them in a bag, and they are different. And one of the secrets of comedy, or one of the strategies, is you have to stand out. Your act has to stand out. It helps if you can stand out. There are a lot of guys on the local scene here who are guys with glasses and beards and flannel shirts.
Yeah.
And if everyone's like that, you're not going to stand out of that crowd. So I guess it's become kind of my branding now, is these jackets, and hopefully it'll get me noticed.
I think so for sure. Like, you're definitely noticing, your eye catching, your wit is amazing. So you have a new special coming out. When does it come out? What's it called? Where can people find it? I want to know, because besides
Okay.
Dry Bar, let's get there.
It's not on Dry Bar.
Okay.
My first two specials are on Dry Bar, and people can go to my website, robertmac.com, and watch them there. This I shot in my old high school. It's called
Wow.
Mac to School. It comes out on October 14th
Right.
on Amazon. I'm excited because it was Dry Bar is great and it got me a lot of exposure, but this was self-produced, and because of that we didn't shoot it in Utah. Utah has all sorts of they have a lot of rules of things you can talk about, and we decided to do my own. So it comes out on the 14th. Go to Amazon. In the meantime, you can go to robertmac.com and you'll see information about it. You can also go to robertmac.com, MTS for Mac to School. There's some clips there. There's some promos there. We are using social media right now to get the word out, and people have fallen in love with these social media clips, because I'm kind of new to TikTok in particular.
Yeah.
So I encourage everyone to go to robertmac.com and start your exploring there, and you can watch the two previous ones and then find out how to get the new one.
Now, this one, where was it filmed at in your high school? Was it like in the gym, or was it like in the cafeteria? Like, where was it at? I'm just curious.
It was in the theater. They have,
Oh,
since
the
I
theater.
graduated, they have built this really nice theater that seats, I forget, 320, 340?
Wow.
It's a big size. I went to a private school, and part of going to a private school is the community stays pretty tight. So all these years later, I'm still part of that community. And they said, whenever you want to come and do a show, let me know. And I talked to these producer guys who said, let's take a look at their theater. And we shot it a few months ago, and the rest will be history, I hope.
Yeah, did you do multiple shows? Did you like 2 shows back to back like they do like for Dry Bar, or did you just do one show?
One show, multiple
Wow.
camera. We did a few retakes after, but for the most part, we got it. I spent the week leading up to it working on it in different venues, so I was pretty much in the right place with it. And yeah, it is sort of a gamble when you do one show. You want it to go well, and but thankfully it was sort of my home crowd, and it was many people I went to school with, and I have discovered that I have a big support group, not just people who go to my shows, but my producers, this new social media guy I have who's helping. I have a patron who helped front some of the costs for the special. So I've got people in my corner. I've got experience. I've got a couple specials. I got a new special. So we're trying to ramp up everything to get to the next, burst through to the next level.
I think your next level is, honestly, I don't know, I'm going to say this, a movie. You got to make a movie. Like, you have to make a movie. You're such a good character. Like, you are like a Steve Martin. Like, there has to be a movie with you in it.
Like a jerk type movie, or
I don't know. Like, I almost feel like the movie would be kind of like The Jerk, maybe, but more of a positive one. Like, you're the smart dumb guy who maybe falls into having to solve a will, like in order to get his monies from his parents, like the will, he has to do these philanthropic things to get the money, but they're all like terrible things that you would hate doing, and you're terrible at all of them, but it's funny to watch you do it. You know what I'm saying?
okay, like a Brewster's Millions or something.
Yeah, kind of like that. Like, I always go back to like those 80s 90s like comedies like that, where it's like you have to get something, but you have to do it in a silly way, kind of thing.
Well, I'm putting all my notes down of stuff that I want to have happen, and I do have a couple of ideas for movies, and
Okay.
Certainly playing this character and fleshing it out would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. And you're like Robertmac the third or something like that, but your dad wasn't Robertmac, or you're just for some reason you're Robertmac the third, right, or something like that.
Right.
I don't know. It just seems like a funny way, and you always would introduce yourself like that, and it would just, I don't know. I think there's so much there because your character has that unique perspective that would be fun to see you interact with other people. Almost kind of like, I don't know if did you ever watch like Pee-wee's Big Adventure or Pee-wee's Big Top?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Kind of like that, like how he interacts with people, where it's like everyone else seems weird compared to Pee-wee, but they're normal and he's not, type thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, Pee-wee's great. That's a great example of someone, committing and playing a character and committing to it.
Yeah.
I would say my act isn't nearly as defined as that guy, but I certainly feel like the person I play on stage and the person I am are different. And so, for Paul Rubens, that's a completely different thing. My guy has the same name and all of that. But it's fun to play that, and it would be fun to play it in a movie. You're kind of jumping the gun. I just want to take baby steps to get there.
Well, maybe a web series then. You could just do short
web series. Sure.
There you go, short stuff. Because I like you. You're a personable person to even talk to, but your stand up is just so engaging. Even though, yeah, it's kind of like you're not shouting in anyone's face, but you're still grabbing our attention. Like, something about you just grabs attention, and I really like it. I'm glad that there are comedians like you, because you're right, a lot of people are the same, like beard or a black shirt and jeans on stage or whatever. It's just like, it's refreshing to see something different.
Well, that's good to hear. I've in the last few weeks since this social media campaign has started, I've been reading a lot of comments online, and they're very touching and very ego stroking, and but I get a lot of comments that you're different, or you're refreshing, or it's nice to see a different point of view, and I hope to parlay that into the next, whatever the next thing is. But like I said before, I think you have to stand out in this business to get noticed. And if everyone's got the black shirt and the attitude and they're yelling at the audience, how do you stand out amongst that group?
Yeah, no, it's great. So I will put all the links in the show notes for you. So robertmac.com is where you can find all of your stuff. And then it's called Mac to School, coming out on October 14th. Is that right? October 14th? Yep. On Amazon for rent and buy, correct? Rent and buy?
Correct. And what I'm telling people is, right now you should start getting your viewing parties lined up and get your caterers lined up. And then your school assignment is watch the previous 2 specials to get up to speed. And those are free on my website. And then you have all your friends over, and you can watch the debut of the new one, Mac to School.
That is so cool, man. Thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else you want to let people know about or get them excited about besides the special?
I would say that, to go back to what you started with, those jokes, if you go to my TikTok account, which is robertmac.com, and look for the one that's called 15 dad jokes, to get an idea of what you've been talking about.
Yeah. And then one more question for you. If you could go back in time to your earlier self when you started stand-up and give them one piece of advice, what would that one piece of advice be?
Probably to really take risks and push it earlier. It's an easy job to be a slacker because there's no boss, and in theory you could wake up at 5 o'clock and then have breakfast and then you go do your show at 8 o'clock at night. But if I could tell myself anything, it would be to push myself a little bit more.
Okay. I like that. That's good advice.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Robert. Thanks for being on the podcast. Everybody, thank you for listening. You now know we've hit over 300 episodes. This is episode 301. So over 300 episodes. We've been doing this for a long time. We have a new Patreon. We have things coming out. I have stickers that are getting made. So it'll be this kind of like this logo, but my face will be on it. So you guys will see those everywhere. And get excited because new things are coming. And we're starting after episode 300, 301 here with Robertmac. Thank you, Robert, so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Hey, everybody. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. And have a good one, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.